So I mentioned earlier this partnership with Greater Cleveland Partnership, the City of Cleveland, and Ohio Department of Transportation. They came together to advance the work, but they're not the only partners. And so a steering committee was established really at the behest of the mayor and the governor. And it represents a range of civic, private, public partners, labor, community development corporations, and residents. We have asked each of the neighborhoods to have at least one resident join our steering committee. So we have voices that we think are the voices throughout the committee represented in helping our work. So next. This is just a sense of our structure. There's steering committee, and there's a plan to have different working committees. The working committees will get activated, and maybe not all of them at one time, but some this year. And we have, two co-chairs, Terry Egger from the Plain Dealer and Jamie Ireland from the business community. Next. We established some goals early on. I've talked about them already, as we talked about, but access and connectivity to employment centers, cultural venues is something I didn't mention, highway, interstate, but also to be competitive in bringing jobs into the city to identify development sites. We believe that some number of jobs can be created. We estimated very roughly some 15,000. This is over a long period of time. This is not a number that is based on any kind of exact plan, and so it will change, and then it will change again as we have plans and begin to figure out exactly the development perspective. But if we try to create opportunities for light manufacturing or assembly, warehouse logistics, a lot of economic producing kinds of activities, we believe this is possible also through the construction of these developments and of the roadway and all of that. Ultimately, that large project planning area that I showed you, we've identified some 300 acres of land that could be reactivated, reused for economic activities. So those are the big pictures. So what are we doing right now? Matt's going to give you a very detailed explanation of the transportation planning that's underway. I could not do it justice. In fact, I think I messed up the other day when I was talking about it. But in general, HNTV has been hired by the Ohio Department of Transportation to come up with these conceptual routes, alternatives to use for the roadway. They are currently finishing environmental field tests. Those of you who own property in the project area would have gotten letters from us probably late summer, early fall about doing field work, and they'll continue to talk to us, interview individuals. They've already interviewed businesses in this area. Some will continue to do that work. They'll give us refinements in terms of the roadway and project costs, but ultimately both ODOT and the City of Cleveland will make final decisions about the alternatives, or the final one that gets selected. The steering committee will make recommendations. Thanks. So the work that I've been working on is what's the development vision? What's the opportunity that the roadway can create for the communities? And so our goal here is to develop what I call a community-supported land use or master plan. And so we've worked with Marie and Ben from Slavic Village in our workshops to think about that. We're going to refine those job numbers and refine other kinds of estimates related to the benefits. We're going to work on specific plans related to possible relocation and redevelopment or construction of new homes within St. Hyacinth south of the area where we're talking about the road would have an impact, such that we would work together to strengthen the St. Hyacinth neighborhood where there are vacant properties or other lots, so that we could try to strengthen it, as I said. And in addition to that being part of the planning and the community benefits, we are engaged in this education and engagement process, hearing what you think about the project and responding to it. So we've had a number of workshops. I won't go into more detail, but it's how do we strengthen neighborhoods and make connections along the way. There's one other thing that we've done, and I think done really well. We're establishing a vision for the full 3-mile distance, not just a vision for each neighborhood. And that's taken a lot of conversation and I think leadership on the part of the CDC directors. So again, I mentioned already sort of light industry or distribution. Office and research is another kind of land use that we expect that might happen. And these are just some images. Images of buildings that exist in our community that we think would be great along the corridor. And then lastly, our last workshop was really all about land use recommendations and the connections. Where do we want to see major intersections for where the roadway connects with existing communities? And here we are intent on looking for a way for the St. Hyacinth neighborhood to be able to access the corridor, and Matt will talk about that as well. Lastly, we developed, as I said, the shared vision statement. Not lastly, here we go. This is a visual of what it might look like. And Matt has his own visuals, and these, they don't conflict, but they just provide different ways of looking at it. So you might have medians. This is awfully wide, and this exaggerates how wide it might be. But we wanted to say that we want to move people and have sidewalks that I guess are pedestrian friendly, bike paths, whether the bike lanes are on the road or in the median. This is just food for thought or image for thought. Next. But what these suggest strongly is that it's not a freeway. It will be a boulevard that's at grade and allows for what this suggests, a connector street to the neighborhood. And now the last slide. It's our working draft of our vision statement. And it says a lot, but it says in particular that we want this road, this infrastructure, to be a catalyst for economic development that ultimately helps us build healthy communities. So we have high aspirations for this project, and with your input, you know, we will refine it and hopefully proceed with it. But one more thing, you're going to hear from Matt. Come on, actually, Trevor's next. As we are advancing this planning, there is always the chance that it won't happen. So I'd rather have the transportation people actually say that part than me, because I'm working so hard to make sure. But the point here is that, as some of you know, this project's been talked about for a long time, different years and different iterations. But I believe this time, because it's more than transportation, because it includes the economic development component, and because we are looking to engage the community, its leaders and its residents on how they might benefit, we have a shot of really getting the project done this time. So, Trevor, if I could ask you to come up and talk about city planning's involvement and then the land use planning aspect, then you'll turn it over to Matt.
Sure.
Thank you.